Hello guys, how are you? It's Nan and I just wanted to say God bless you. Hope your day is going well. Today I want to share Psalm 139 and it's a Psalm of David. And I'm sure many of you have already read the Psalm and know that it's the two words that we most hear when we see little quotes and all that's fearfully and wonderfully made. I've already gone ahead and added a little bit of washi to the top and the bottom of the page, and I actually used some gesso. On this side, what I did was I used my paintbrush to put a very light layer of gesso right onto the page, and I'm using my heat gun to just make sure that it is dry. It doesn't take that long to dry. And if you don't have any gesso, you can use some white paint. It works as well. Okay. That is dried. So I want my pages to reflect what I pretty much learned from this psalm. And I've had a kinda hard week, so the Lord has been pondering my heart as far as to this psalm, reminding me of things that I already know, but that's the way the word works. God is reminding us always the same things over and over again. And it's because we need to hear them. He doesn't want us to forget them. So as I read that psalm, some of the stuff written in those verses really reminded me of this picture that I had. Yes, it is my granddaughter before she was born. And in this psalm, David is speaking to the Lord, and basically speaking from his heart, saying how God formed him from the inward parts, how he was knitted in his mother's womb. And as we look at this, I can see what's in this because of the ultrasound. But God, he even says that God saw his unformed substance even before he was born. God had him fashioned and planned beforehand. David's life was fashioned and planned beforehand. It was no accident. David knows this. This is a psalm where he's assured of everything that he's saying and that he speaks and that he wants us to know too. We were formed in the womb of our mother. God is who saw us. God is who fashioned us. God is who created us. Even beforehand, God has this planned. It was written. This psalm tells you that it was written. What was written? How God had planned beforehand David's life and each of ours. Isn't that incredible? So that's something I wanted to add to my page. So I added a little card, an index card on the back, sewed it together, just as a reminder, and put specific words from that psalm that I could, when I pull the card out, I can turn it around, and maybe someday she'll see that and she'll be able to remember what the word says about her. So that's something I do want to add. And then I made this little envelope. You can't slip anything into it, but I did want it to be a side pocket here. So I'm going to glue that down there because that picture's gonna fit nicely behind the card. David is speaking in this psalm, and he says how God knows his sitting and his rising, how God is acquainted with all his ways, how God knows everything he's going to say even before he speaks it. Who knows our heart? I could never imagine what you have in your heart. No one could ever imagine what I have in my heart unless we speak it. But David says here that God knows it even before he says anything. And that knowledge, knowing that his God knows everything he's going to say, knows his heart, his thoughts, is something that was too high for him to attain. Not to understand, to attain God's greatness. So in the first 6 verses or 8, we're seeing here how God is all-knowing. He's omniscient. And then he goes on to say how God's presence goes with him wherever he goes. God's spirit goes with him. Whether he goes to the heavens or the Bible says Sheol, God is there. It doesn't matter where he goes. God is with him wherever he goes. And if I'm being a little too loud, please put your volume down. The card here, I just decorated. I got this idea from Somerset Studio, and I liked it so much I wanted to create it. I added the sticker on there that I got from Amazon, and a few other little tidbits from mail that I get, and I stapled the little ribbon to the end. So on this side, I want to add, this was a copier paper that I thrifted, but I like the roses so much because it was color coordinated with the pink in the ribbon and the washi, and on the page. So I want to add there. Isn't it great to know that the Lord knows us in and out when we're in need of something, or he's there. He's ever present. Those are the statements that David makes in this Bible verse. God is there wherever he goes. He can't hide from God. It also speaks how God created him in secret. In secret, in the womb of his own mother, God formed his inward parts. That's too sublime for me to understand. God's greatness. But then again, in Jeremiah 29, Isaiah 55, it says God's ways and thoughts are greater than ours. So how can we understand God if God is the one who knows us better than we know ourselves? It says that God's thought, in 17, he says God's thoughts are great. The sum of them are vast. It's incredible. I'm going to take a little bit of Distress ink, and I'm just going to go over just lightly on the page to give it, as I call, a little bit of an integrated look. I like the grungy and how the Distress ink makes everything look so antique and luscious. Wherever he goes, that's the word showing us that God is ever present. Doesn't matter where you go. As far as the east is to the west and north is to south, God is there. Omnipresent. Knows us, is with us everywhere. And last but not least, he created you. He formed you in the womb of your mother. He knows your insides and out, every part of you. He intricately made you, wonderfully made you, marvelously made you, exact. And that's what David's sharing with us. Not that he's baffled by the things that he knows about God, but he's in awe of a God who knows his inside and his out. And then he ends this psalm by saying, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts." In 1 Thessalonians 2, you will find God knows men's hearts. David knew God knew his heart. He wasn't asking him a question for God to know his heart. It's another exclamation. Because he was sure. He was sure that God knew him. But he ends with, if there are any grievous ways in me. Let me read that from the text. He says in the end, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. That even though he knew God knew him, every part of him, every inch of him, he still asked God, search me. Search me. Search me to see if there's anything within me that does not please you, Lord. That was David's heart. And it's great to know that there are things in our life that we need to change, and God knows that. You have been wonderfully and fearfully made. Fearfully does not come with a negative connotation. Fearfully means marvelously. It means thoroughly. God created you thoroughly, inside and out. And that's what I want my pages to reflect. And then, last but not least, I wanted to add a little tassel that I created. Might not be the best tassel that you've seen, but I've taken a little yarn. And I put it here because it does say that we were knit in the inner parts of our mother's room. And that's what I wanted to be. Every time I see this little tassel, there's no way I will forget that. I'm going to show you quickly how to create the tassel. So you're going to want to cut, whether it's floss or some kind of string. I have yarn here, about 6 to 7 inches long, and 2 extra pieces. So we'll work with the first one. Just place it right underneath, in the middle, underneath, right in the center. And you can tie your first knot, lift it up. I tied a second knot. And what I did up on the top was, I just wrapped it on my finger, pulled it through, and made that little hoop there. The further down you pull, the shorter will be, which is better than what I did. If you see some strings shorter than the other, just tug a little bit and you can even them out. And then just cut the top portion off a little bit. And then I'm going to put this down here. Or rather yet, I did this in this manner. I held it here. Wrapped the ribbon around it twice. Then just tied the first knot so you can get the little top portion. The more yarn you put, the fuller it'll be. You won't see anything through the other side, so you can add a little more thread if you want. That's why the thinner thread is better than this thicker thread. But I did like the way it looks, so that's what I went with. What I had on hand at the moment also. I just didn't want to reach up and grab all my floss up there. So, and there's my tassel. And then all you need is your bulb pin. I had an extra one here. I'm not sure where I put it, but just add, oh, here it is. Put it on your bulb pin. And then connect it to your tab on the side of the page. You can choose any color you want. But don't forget to do one last thing, and that is to cut the ends evenly if you choose to. Cute little tassel. And then place it on your tab. Or if you decide you want to add the tab on this, another tab on this side, you can hang it on this side. It's up to you. And then last, I almost forgot one thing. It's, oops, I just colored my finger. I'd like to add this stamp on there. I'm just going to stamp it right there. And if I choose to, I can stamp here also. And that is my page. And I will leave just saying, do not forget that you have been fearfully and wonderfully made. God knows everything there is to know about you, what you need, when you're in distress, when you are alone. But even though the Lord knew David, and David knew that, he still spoke to the Lord. If there is any grievous way in me, he's speaking to the Lord, opening his heart up to him. You know me, Lord. I know you. Is basically the conversation between them. And we learned 3 attributes of God: that He knows everything, He's present always, and He's all powerful. There's nothing God can't do for you. Nothing is impossible for Him. So remember, you are loved. God bless you. See you soon.